Welcome to Hannity. President Obama stabbing Israel in the back on his way out of office. I'm Eric Bowling in for Sean tonight. Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, is fired up and will be here in just a moment with reaction. But first, in what many are calling the ultimate betrayal in America's alliance with Israel, the Obama administration earlier today allowed the United Nations to pass a resolution condemning Israeli settlements in East Jerusalem and the West Bank as, quote, a flagrant violation of international law. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reacting by saying, quote, Israel rejects the shameful anti-Israel resolution at the UN and will not abide by its terms. Netanyahu adding, quote, the Obama administration not only failed to protect Israel against this gang up at the UN, it colluded with it behind the scenes. And President-elect Donald Trump is responding by tweeting this, quote, as to the UN, things will be different after January 20th. Here now with reaction is former U.S. Ambassador to the UN and Fox News contributor John Bolton. Thank you, Ambassador Bolton. Wow, big day at the UN. So tell us, do you think that the UN Security Council colluded with the Obama administration to bring this vote today?
Well, I think certainly the sponsors of the resolution, the Egyptians, some of the others, some of the 5 permanent members of the council, including Great Britain, obviously had to consult with the Obama administration to tell them what was in the resolution so that it was sufficient for Obama to order an abstention. The United States could have killed this resolution by voting no. It did vote no on a very similar resolution in 2011. But this was, and you said it exactly right at the top of the show, this was a stab in the back against the Israelis. It was entirely predictable. I would say this for people in the pro-Israel community in the United States who defended Obama's Middle East policy over these last 8 years, that you should have seen this coming, and this is what you get for supporting Barack Obama.
Yeah, and this is a shot, I guess, it's at Israel, but also President Obama had a pretty contentious relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Well, I think it goes beyond the personal. I really think this was an effort to box the incoming Trump administration in, and it violates nearly 50 years of American bipartisan policy on the Middle East, going back to the iconic Resolution 242 after the 1967 war, which established the principle of land for peace. This resolution says basically Israel's occupation is illegitimate, therefore it has no land to give back in exchange for peace. Contrary to what the Obama administration has said, this puts a huge thumb on the scale against Israel. It does go to final status. It does affect Israel's security. It undermines it in profound ways. The consequences of this resolution are going to be felt for many, many years, all negative on Israel and substantially negative on the United States itself.
And let's be clear, there was quite a bit of bipartisan pushback to the U.S. abstaining from this veto. In other words, they could have vetoed it, they could have killed the resolution. They didn't, and you think of on the right, Paul Ryan, John McCain, the list goes on. Even on the left, Chuck Schumer said the United States should have vetoed this resolution.
Yeah, they should have been, particularly in the Democratic Party, clearer on this going back for a long, long time. This subject of what Barack Obama might do with respect to Israel during the post-election, pre-inauguration period has been the subject of discussions that I've participated in for 2 years or more. It was entirely foreseeable, and now we see the consequences.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Israel's response. Now, will Israel change any policy? Will they stop building? Will they stop developing? Will they stop settling?
Not a chance, and nor should they. I tell you, this I do think, actually, contrary to what Obama said, is the death knell of the so-called two-state solution, because it shows, once again, it is fundamentally unworkable. And I think Netanyahu and a nearly unanimous Israeli public opinion will support him on that. With respect to the United States, I think it's time to stand up for a principle I've certainly advocated for a long time, which is votes in the United Nations should have consequences. We've got 2 issues here: the 14 countries that voted in favor of this resolution and the United Nations as a whole. Personally, what I would recommend to the president-elect would be, once he takes office, he should say this resolution is illegitimate and the United States is going to seek to repeal it. Now, if that fails, and that's the most likely outcome, we should cut our contribution to the United Nations, perhaps in toto until this resolution is repealed.
This is an interesting concept, Ambassador Bolton. Right now, we account for somewhere around 20 to 22% of the total budget of the UN. So you're suggesting if the resolution isn't repealed, then we go ahead and pull the 20% of their budget?
Yeah, look, my experience with the United Nations, which goes back a long way, is that there are only two aspects of American power that are really respected in the United Nations. One is the veto in the Security Council, which Barack Obama threw away today, and the other is our money. I've personally engaged in telling specialized agencies in the UN and others that if something happens contrary to our wishes, we'll cut the money off. We have done that. I remember well in 1991 when the Security Council authorized the use of force against Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait. Yemen voted no on that resolution. Jim Baker, Secretary of State in the U.S. chair at the council, turned to those of us sitting behind him and said, that's the most expensive vote Yemen has ever cast, and we substantially eliminated their foreign aid budget. There are a lot of steps we can take here, and I hope the incoming Trump administration looks at all of them. So
I think it was 14-0 as a unanimous vote by the council. Who would be the most affected? I guess Egypt represents the Arab League. Who would be the most affected if we do pull back or eliminate foreign aid to these countries?
Well, I think that's one option. I'm not necessarily saying we should do it in every case. There's some of these countries where we have no effective leverage now, like Venezuela. But, you know, people have talked about what our relationship with Russia might be. This shows, regardless of personal relationships, Russia is always prepared to shaft the Middle East, the United States in the Middle East. It's been doing it under Obama for 8 years. This is one more piece of evidence of it. It's just extremely distressing that even Great Britain didn't abstain on this resolution, and it shows just how much difficulty there is in the United Nations to try and carry out a coherent American foreign policy.
You bring up Russia. Talk to us a little bit about the back and forth that went down today. Vladimir Putin commended Donald Trump on his victory, gave him a pat in the back. He also sent him a letter, and Donald Trump tweeted, thank you. And tell us about that relationship. Is it that bad to have a good relationship with Russia?
Well, it's a question of what our national interests are compared to Russia's, and I think the exchange of comments today that's gotten the most attention has been on the nuclear front, and I think Trump was exactly right to say that he's not going to let the U.S. nuclear capability be second to anybody else, including Russia. The Obama administration has put us in I think, an inferior position with their misguided New START treaty, which was negotiated and ratified back in 2010, ratified, I'm sorry to say, with the support of a lot of Republican members of Congress. I think it's time to look again at that entire relationship. I don't think we should be negotiating bilateral strategic arms treaties with the Russians anymore. The world is a lot more complicated in nuclear terms than it was during the Cold War, when that was more sensible. And I think this goes to the review that our military needs to conduct of how to rebuild our deterrent capability in both conventional and strategic weapons urgently.
Okay, Ambassador, I only have about a minute or so, or a little less, but I think this is fantastic. President-elect Donald Trump says, you know what, we are going to be the #1 superpower in the world. And also, by the way, we get along with #2. It's not going to be a contentious relationship between the United States and Russia. That sounds like a good deal to me.
Well, if we can sustain it, a lot depends on Russia. If it stops military intervention in bordering countries like Ukraine, if it refrains from provocations in countries like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, if it pulls back from its really harmful intervention in the Middle East and some of its other activities, then I think we've got a basis for constructive discussion. But I tell you, one thing that my experience of negotiating with the Russians has shown is that if you show toughness to them, they respect it. They haven't seen that in 8 years.
All right, we're going to leave it right there, Ambassador Bolton. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming at us right here on Hannity.
I am going to keep radical Islamic terrorists the hell out of our country.
President-elect Donald Trump is promising to do everything he can to prevent the kinds of terror attacks we're seeing in Europe. Jillian Turner and Waleed Farris weigh in next. And later, President-elect Trump calls out the Clintons supporting Hollywood liberals for apparently asking for tickets to the inauguration. We'll have reaction, that and much more as Hannity continues.
to protect our country from terrorism and extremism, we will suspend immigration from regions where it cannot be safely processed or vetted. You know, I've used the expression extreme vetting. Extreme, oh, it's got to be extreme. Let me just state this as clearly as I can. I am going to keep radical Islamic terrorists the hell out of our country.
Well, that was President-elect Donald Trump talking tough on terror. And earlier tonight, he tweeted about the Berlin terror attack, saying, in part, quote, "When will the U.S. and all countries fight back?" Joining us now to discuss this is Fox News terrorism and Mideast analyst Waleed Phares. He served as a foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign, and former NSC staffer and Fox News contributor Jillian Turner. Waleed, let's start with you on that. So we found so much out today. I mean, this guy, he pledges allegiance to al-Baghdadi, to ISIS. ISIS releases the video showing him pledging the allegiance. When are we going to, as a globe, get tough on terror?
Well, that's the question of the evening at the eve of Christmas, is basically everything that we tried under the previous administration simply did not work. Let's say 90% of the methods we've used over the past 8 years did not work, which means that we have to change direction. We have to change strategies. For example, just a couple examples. One, we need to start addressing the issues before these people become political asylum seekers or refugees at home in Syria. Therefore, what we need to do for Syria or Libya in this case. And second, let's suppose individuals come and apply for political asylum. The vetting we're talking about now is not, did you serve with Al-Qaeda, as simple as that, or what is your record, police record. It's really about the ideology, and that's going to be a challenge for the next few months.
So how do you do that? Well, I'll bring it to Jillian. How do you do that when you have someone who may not be affiliated with a terrorist group now, but may be susceptible to being radicalized?
That's the number one sort of problem or challenge that law enforcement intelligence community in this country is really having with this. How do you A, identify, and B, target and try and stop folks who are radicalizing in their parents' basements or in various parts of the country when they're not even supposed to be here in the first place? Now, I don't want to be all doom and gloom, because I believe that the United States is in a much stronger position than a country like, say, Germany. They have a whole distinct set of problems there that we don't have here, very fortunately. One of those problems being that, quite simply, our intelligence community and law enforcement works together a lot better and more seamlessly than they do over there. So far, we've also not made. We're better off, but also we haven't made the right
once.
That is true. That's the scary part about all of this, is that you can get it right 10,000 times and get it sort of wrong once, and people might die.
And people might
Americans
die.
might die.
Waleed, let's talk about that for a little bit. So incoming President Donald Trump is going to have a policy. Now, he talks about extreme, and he says extreme vetting. I get that, but what's wrong with saying, hey, hold off for now. Let's not take immigrants from or refugees from countries with ties to terror.
This could happen. Actually, there will be a discussion, internal discussion, I assume, inside the administration, law enforcement agencies, but also with Congress and with allies. And the results of all of that is going to be what has not worked before cannot work now. And therefore, if a political decision is reached to stop immigration for a while from an area where the jihadists are penetrating, is one. But that alone is not going to solve everything. We need to have a different view of this. We need to have the next doctrine, national security doctrine, written differently from the last 8 years.
Stay right there on that. And you're right, and I agree with you, and I keep hearing this. We need to attack the ideology of terror rather than the terrorists. But is that a realistic goal? And how do you go about that? Well, let's start with you and then Jillian.
Well, first of all, you need to determine what it is. If you don't determine what it is, nobody, NSA, CIA, FBI, and believe me, I've been in this business for the last 12, 14 years, engaging with their analysts. They would not understand how to do it if they don't know what it is. So we have to have a debate on that one. Second, when you do it, then everything opens up. You can work with NGOs. You can work with NGOs from these communities. They will be your advanced radars in that issue. Now we have dismantled that whole resistance. Second, the public. We need to educate our public. We have seen so many cases where citizens were the first responders to tell the law enforcement what's going on. So we need to educate them.
You're 100% right. The public, and Jillian, moderate Muslims can get involved too. But again, is this a realistic goal to solve the terrorism problem by attacking the ideology?
It's realistic, but it's not something that's going to happen in the short term or even the medium term.
Give us a
That's
start.
more
Give
of
us
a
a starting
long
point.
term.
What do we do? What's the
So as a starting point, for example, it's about hearts and minds. It's partially, some of the argument is financial. This is why you heard the Obama administration talking a couple of years ago about jobs for terrorists. You know, they got mocked for it. But I actually think that there is a kernel of something really viable in there, which is part of what you have to do is convince these vulnerable populations that terrorism is not the answer, that joining an organization like ISIS is not the answer. It's not the way to a better future for you or your family or the people that you love. And that's what's really hard.
Is there a way to do that, or is it only going to be until you offer them something more? Something I don't even know what it is.
Like incentives, like jobs, or education.
Or life, or something
That's why
better.
it's longer term, right? Because you can start to try and implement some of those things, but this is like a generational problem, as President Obama says all the time.
Waleed, I got about 30 seconds. Is this an unrealistic goal?
No, it's not unrealistic. Remember that 9/11 was a while ago. 2 generations have been formed. Meanwhile, we need to have a long-term plan is number one, and then medium plan and short-term plan. And I think we need to start somewhere and not go back to the old methods that are not efficient anymore.
All right, I'm going to leave it right there. Coming up next, President-elect Donald Trump calls out all the Hillary Clinton-loving Hollywood liberals for apparently asking for inauguration tickets. We have reaction. And then later.
My administration will be focused on 3 very important words: jobs, jobs, jobs.
President-elect Donald Trump is laying out his agenda, but where should he focus first? Newt Gingrich is here tonight to weigh in on that and much more. Stay with us as Hannity continues. Welcome back to Hannity. President-elect Donald Trump is calling out Hollywood liberals by tweeting, quote, the so-called A-list celebrities are all wanting tickets to the inauguration, but look what they did for Hillary. Nothing. I want the people. Of course, major Trump hater model Chrissy Teigen is firing back by tweeting, hi, we are all people. You are our president too. I don't want you to be, but you are. Also, we all know you're dying without the approval, dear. All right, Chrissy Teigen is actually making progress, though, here by saying Trump is, in fact, our president. Other liberals should follow her example. But if you remember back during the campaign, Teigen was a huge Hillary supporter and routinely mocked and attacked Donald Trump, even stooping to calling Melania Trump expletives. So is President-elect Donald Trump right to be calling out the Hollywood hypocrisy? Joining us now with reaction, our Fox News contributor, Mercedes Slapp, the founder and executive director of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, and the Hill contributor, Kristen Tate. I'm going to start with you, Kristen. Chrissy Teigen, she was pretty rough on the Trumps. Now they all want inauguration tickets. We should just say, no, we're good.
Yeah, you know, Eric, I haven't been able to stop smiling since November 8th. It's hilarious because these celebrities, they are so entitled, and for the first time, we have a leader who will treat these elites with the same contempt that the average working class Americans have been treated with by those very elites who say they're better than us and that we are not paying our fair share. For the first time, these beautiful people in Hollywood and the liberal media pukes will understand how conservatives have felt for the last 8 years. You know, I love this. Donald Trump just surprises us every day, and this is today's surprise. He just keeps getting better.
All right, Mercy. At one point, I offered first-class airfare one way for all the celebrities who promised to leave the country if Donald Trump was the president-elect, and I haven't had one offer.
I was going to say,
not one single person yet, Mercy.
Well, let me tell you, Trump is trying to drain the swamp here in Washington. It might be time for him to try to drain the swamp in Hollywood. For crying out loud, these Hollywood celebrities, they've been snobbish, elitist, and guess what? They're disconnected from reality. They're disconnected from everyday Americans. And this is what I like about Donald Trump. It's the fact that he's making this inauguration the inauguration of the people. This is not the inauguration of the Hollywood celebrities and those who think that they don't want to participate, like the one, let's say, Rockette that says, oh my God, I'm embarrassed to go there and be at the inauguration. It's like, come on, give me a break. As Tim Allen said, these Hollywood celebrities that have been anti-Trump have been the most bullying of them all. They've bullied Donald Trump. They've bullied those supporters who have been alongside Donald Trump. And it's time for them to knock it off. This is a time of unity for our nation. This is what we want, a peaceful transition. And it's time to move forward for America and stop being a sore loser.
Right. And Charlie, Jon Stewart, one of my adversaries on television, promised to move to another planet if Donald Trump was the president. He's obviously not going to be able to do that. But Lena Dunham, I thought she was going to just fall apart completely. Alec Baldwin, Barbara Streisand, it goes on and on. Your thoughts on these Hollywood elites?
Yeah, these Hollywood hypocrites, they say they're going to leave the country if Trump wins and they want inauguration tickets when he does. It's the hypocrisy is unbelievable. Isn't it nice to now have a president that doesn't cater to these Hollywood elites that did these $50,000 a plate fundraisers? Both Hillary and Obama did these ridiculous fundraisers in Hollywood and pandered to them and gave these elitists full granted access to the White House. Isn't it nice to have a president that actually wants blue-collar Americans represented at his inauguration? I think this actually shows why Trump won. It's because he didn't pander to the very elites that middle America felt so disconnected from for so long. And hey, with Elon Musk's progress with actually getting us to Mars the next 100 years, Jon Stewart better pack his bags because you never know. He might have to go there
That's
soon.
a good point. Quick thought across the board. Start with you, Kristen. How about we put him in one inaugural ball, one room, and then pull the plug, and Trump says, I can't make that one.
I love it. These celebrities, they are people, like this woman says, but they're deplorable people. So they don't deserve to go to the inauguration because they didn't get Trump into the White House.
I think if you do the inaugural ball, they're going to need like boxes of Kleenex tissues because they're going to be crying their whole way through this inauguration. Look, at the end, I think we need to be, as a nation, we need to move forward. We need to come together. I think that the Hollywood celebrities have just shown once again that they're not interested in what is everyday America, in connecting with these communities, and they are disconnected from reality.
Wrap it up for me, Charlie.
What? Eric, I think we should have a safe space ball where we just have all these leftists together that need a safe space area where we have Play-Doh and cushions, so then no offensive words at all, where they could pretend that Trump actually didn't win.
And Mercy, you want to say what else did they get? Juice boxes.
That's right. That's right.
All right, that's a good idea. We'll leave it right there, guys. Thank you very much. Coming up next, right here on Hannity.
My administration will be focused on three very important words: jobs, jobs, jobs.
President-elect Donald Trump laying out part of his agenda. Newt Gingrich is here to tell us what he thinks the president-elect should do. Focus on the first day once he officially becomes commander-in-chief. Stay with us as Hannity continues.
Together, we will raise incomes and bring jobs and wealth and opportunity to our poorest communities. We will repeal the disaster known as Obamacare and create new health care, all sorts of reforms that work for you and your family. I am asking Congress to support the construction of new roads, bridges, airports, tunnels, and railways all across our nation. We're going to do it. My administration will be focused on three very important words: jobs, jobs, jobs.
That was President-elect Donald Trump on his thank you tour, laying out part of his agenda. Joining us now is the author of the best-selling book, Treason, former Speaker of the House and Fox News contributor, Newt Gingrich. So, Mr. Gingrich, what would Newt Gingrich's advice be to President-elect Donald Trump over this next couple of weeks, this break, this holiday break? What should he be looking to do, get accomplished?
Well, I think, first of all, he needs to finish filling out the key jobs that he's recruiting people for. It's an enormous undertaking, not just the cabinet and the sub-cabinet, but about 4,000 jobs altogether. So that's inevitably going to take part of his time. He needs to start thinking about his inaugural address. It'll be one of the most important moments of his entire presidency. It gives people a chance to see who he is and how he thinks and what his values are. So it's a very, very important speech. He needs to keep talking to foreign leaders, keep opening up those relationships, because that's a new thing for him. And I think that he has to think through how he wants to handle Inauguration Week. He's going to be very busy. They're going to have an enormous crowd here to see the inaugural. And Calista and I are certainly looking forward to it. It's going to be just great. But at the same time, that's a time to get some things done, to repeal executive orders, to talk with the Congress about passing some big legislation to make sure that his various cabinet picks are going to get through the Senate. So he'll have a lot to do in the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Talk to us a little bit about that inaugural address. What do you expect to hear? What type of tone? What's the message?
Well, I mean, first of all, who knows that he's the president-elect? He gets to write the address he wants. But I think he made so much of making America great again. It was so central to his campaign that I have a hunch you're going to see that come back up. And I think he's going to talk, if I was guessing, and I clearly am because I don't know, I think he'll talk about making America great again. He'll talk about the role of Americans in making America great again. And he'll talk about the idea, I think, that greatness should not only apply to all Americans, but that hopefully the world will see, and watching us and participating with us, that every human being can be great again, and that you don't have to have the kind of organization that cuts off people's heads, because, you know, you can do it through the pursuit of happiness. You can do it through free enterprise. You can do it because free people are allowed to work together. The exact opposite of ISIS and their effort to rule by terror. I hope he's going to give that kind of a visionary, relatively brief speech. I think John F. Kennedy's speech, for example, was only 1,800 words. So the inaugural should be relatively brief, moral, visionary, clear language. And then a couple weeks later, you go up to the joint session. You have a much longer, more boring speech. But they're two different kind of commodities.
Gotcha. One of the most important initiatives, things that Donald Trump will have to do right away. And when should he do this? When should he nominate someone for the Supreme Court?
Oh, I would think within a week or two. I wouldn't be shocked if he did it the first day. He has the list. It's a list that they thought about very carefully before they put it out. Anyone on that list is going to be an outstanding choice. I know that he is thinking about it, talking to people about it. He's going to make a very good choice, a very solid choice. And I think that person will get through because I think they'll be so respected. This was a list of winners of people with great, great judicial reputations. And there's not a single weak person on that list. And I think conservatives will be ecstatic when they see that we're going to have an opportunity here for Justice Scalia's seat to be filled by somebody who shares Justice Scalia's sound conservative principles.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't even have to wait until he's sworn in to at least nominate someone, clearly, as he's doing now. Some of the initiatives that he'll have to undertake in, I guess, the first 100 days or so, or not. Let's go through them. Jobs, Obamacare, repeal or replace, immigration and taxes. What should be the priority?
Well, I think, first of all, for the success of the entire administration, as he said in a speech recently, there were 3 words that characterized the goal of his administration: jobs, jobs, jobs. He got it right. If this economy picks up, if we take the Trump rally on the stock market and we turn it into a Trump reality in the economy, he's going to do very, very well, and he's going to win a big victory in 2018 in the Senate, and then he's going to win re-election in 2020. If he doesn't do that, if we don't have a real focus on economic opportunity, then I think we'll be in trouble. But everything I'm seeing, the kind of cabinet he's creating, the things they're looking at for deregulation, the approach they're taking with Paul Ryan and with the Ways and Means Committee, all those things to me say that he knows he's got to pass a tax bill that's very pro-jobs. He's got to eliminate a lot of the regulation that's killing jobs. That's got to be his number one focus. Number 2, I think he has to control immigration. Right. Period.
Well, so
that was the issue that propelled him to the top.
On that note, Mr. Speaker, give us a date. When does that first shovel go into the ground for building the wall?
Well, I suspect it'll go into the ground probably in April. I think he'll make the proposal certainly by early February. They'll have to get it through the House and Senate. There's actually some money they could repurpose. And it'll be interesting to watch because, remember, Donald Trump is not a financier. He's not a guy who sat down on Wall Street and invested money. Donald Trump's a builder. He's a guy who built big buildings. He worked with crews. He knows how to get down there with blue-collar workers. He knows how to have on-the-job inspection. I suspect this will be the Donald Trump project. He'll know how to do it. I think the other piece then, if you're going to have jobs and taxes, then you're going to have immigration. The third piece will be to build a new and a dramatically better health system to replace Obamacare with something which increases choice, which increases flexibility, which puts you, the American, in charge of your life, working with your doctor instead of some bureaucrat. And I think, I know, because I've been talking to people in the House and Senate, tremendous effort underway. Dr. Tom Price is going to be a great Secretary of Health and Human Services. They are really leaning forward in that area, and they're going to do good things.
All right, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up, Sean recently sat down with Reverend Franklin Graham. We'll have that interview for you next. Welcome back to Hannity. The Reverend Franklin Graham recently joined Sean to talk about all the important work his charity, Samaritan's Purse, has been doing. Take a look.
All right, joining us now, our good friend, the Reverend Franklin Graham. He is with Samaritan's Purse, Operation Christmas Child. How many years now you've been doing this?
We've been doing 23 years, Sean.
And how many of these are boxes, like you've got a box for a little girl. I've got one, I got the boy box.
Yep.
And you give out how many of these boxes?
134 million so far. This is 12 million this year.
Wow.
We go to 113 different countries.
Right.
Every box is different because they're packed by individual families. They're like snowflakes.
Right.
But Sean, every box goes to a child and gives us a chance to let that child know that God loves them, that God hasn't forgotten them, and that they're special to Him. Because these go to the poor children of the world. You've been with me in Dominican Republic, and
I went with you. And here's the thing that really shocked me. And look, I know we're spoiled. We forget how blessed we are. We really are. We're blessed. And when you go to these countries, you took me to Haiti. You took me to the Dominican Republic with you. When these kids get this box, wow!
Yep,
it's like they got a bicycle. I want a motorcycle. They got a bicycle.
Right.
They got Monopoly. They got everything they wanted, and they are so happy.
They are happy, and it's we give them, Sean, in every country that we can. We give them usually through the churches.
Yeah.
And because I want the children to know that not only God loves them, but the true meaning of Christmas is that God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten
That's
Son.
why we give Christmas gifts.
That's why we give gifts.
What did you get me this year?
Well, peanuts.
That's a great answer, which he sends me every year. All right, now this is, look, Matchbox. As a kid, and it's certain ages, right? What are the different ages? You have 1 to 4, 5 to 9, and 10 to 14.
That's correct.
Okay, and so, and what they, even better than a shoebox, I noticed those big plastic ones, you know. That
those are great.
Those are great because they get more stuff in them.
Dude.
But like this is for a boy. It has a football. It has a Matchbox car. It has a puzzle. It has crayons. That's almost could be used for whiny liberals that are upset Donald Trump won. It has pencils. I can't help myself, Reverend. You know, prayer and fasting for me. It has a sharpener. It has a toothbrush. It has a bar of soap. It has a book. It has a washcloth. All stuff that these kids need.
They need it, and this is for a girl, and every girl. I haven't seen a girl yet that hasn't wanted a doll, and when they get the doll, they pull it out, and of course, the first thing they do is they hug the doll.
I saw that firsthand. It was amazing. You know, I know you've been doing this. How many years?
23 years.
Okay. When I went, I was surprised. I wasn't surprised at the magnitude of it. I was surprised at the reaction of the kids.
Yeah.
And look, I'm a hard-hearted person. I'm not as soft-hearted as you. But it makes your heart melt. This is so worthwhile. This is so great for them.
Well, Sean, and of course, your family has participated. You have helped us. And again, Sean, it's Christmas, and it's about God giving His Son. And he gave the gift to mankind. That's His Son, Jesus Christ. And so this is just to go out to the children of the world and to try to touch as many as we can. 12 million children. But Sean, the key to this is I ask people that pack the box to pray.
Over the box.
To just pray for the child who's going to get that box. I don't know who's going to get it. God does. And we know God will hear the prayer of one righteous person. Can you imagine 12 million people praying for children, what God may do for the children of this world?
What is the most in terms of 1 year boxes sent to you?
This year will be the most, 12 million.
Every year's the most. I ask you this question every year. You tell me this is better than last year.
It is. It keeps growing. Yeah.
Well, because I think, look, and I'm lazy. I just send you a check. and you can do that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And then you can go out and buy boxes, and people at Samaritan's Purse put them together.
Yeah, and you can go to SamaritansPurse.org, and it's called Build a Box. For a person that can't go out for whatever reason, they can actually do it online. They can fill out a box online. And
you can do the whole thing online?
Online, yes. To Samaritan's Purse, Build a Box.
It's an amazing thing. How's your dad doing?
Doing pretty good,
He's
Sean.
98 years old.
98 years old, getting kind of quiet. Doesn't say a whole lot anymore, but his mind is still sharp.
Yeah, and you saw him recently, said, "Hey, Franklin."
Yes, he did. The nurse had to remind him I was sitting beside him.
Is that right?
And he said, "Hello, Franklin."
Well, was he following the campaign? I'm just interested.
I think a little bit.
Yeah.
And, of course, when Donald Trump won, I went down to see him and told him, and he was aware of it.
Well, I know you spend all your time flying around the world, helping people in these poor countries. I think this is one of the greatest ideas. Obviously, millions of Americans have responded. It's great work. And if people want to contribute or help, how do they do it?
Well, just go to SamaritansPurse.org to our website.
Yeah.
And it's not just Operation Christmas Child, but all of our projects around the world. We're getting ready right now to put a hospital in northern Iraq, right outside of Mosul.
And you fly to all of these dangerous places yourself.
I go there myself, yes.
I don't know how you do it, but you're amazing. Can I keep this football, or would that be stealing from a child? That would be pretty bad, right?
We can't steal from a child, Sean.
No, I can't steal from a child. Reverend, good to see you, my friend. God bless you.
God bless you, Sean.
I appreciate you being with us.
We hope you have a very Merry Christmas. Good night, America.